And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the VCT Game Changers, where TSM are one map up in this elimination match against Frogs. I'm Yusu, and I'm joined by Tanner and Sam, your casters, for the rest of this evening. Guys, welcome back. Tanner, right off the bat, I know you guys had a bit of a discussion about the Viper in that game, and I can't help but feel like there was a certain degree of disrespect from the Frogs players, perhaps, or maybe not being used to knowing how to play against some of the Viper utilities, because they kind of handed right into her hands with the way they played around her wall and also her toxins as well.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing whenever I see a Viper usually is, and the reason I always talk about buff Viper, buff Viper, buff Viper is because if a team doesn't respect your abilities, then you kind of just get run over. And so on the inverse, if you give it too much respect, you get run over. And that's exactly what happened. I also think you have to give a huge shout out to Arianarchist for playing the Viper the way she did. It was near flawless outside of that one we see Lynn going up over that one-way smoke, but just played it so incredibly well. I didn't give it enough credit, to be honest.
One of the things I mentioned was like, the Viper wall goes up, then it comes down, and it's like, surprise, here I am. And it's like you said, they're not respecting that bit of utility. They're kind of running in blind, not really thinking about how they're going to react to this. And I think it also comes down to teams not really playing the Viper too often. So a lot of teams aren't really sure how to respond to that. And you've got to learn on the fly. And sometimes it works out quite well and you're able to do well. We saw that with the one round where the Viper's pit came out. They walked out of the Viper's pit. The pit went down and Frogs were able to get the defuse. So sometimes it does work out and you can figure things out a little bit. But sometimes you just kind of get smacked around a little bit.
Well, Sam, in the pre-show, the pre-match bit, you talked about Arianarchist, being on trial. So she is a substitute, of course, for this tournament. I can't believe that she's not on a team. What's going on there?
So this is an interesting one. Going back to FTW, I kind of mentioned how she was the sub for Dignitas. Shadowlina wasn't able to play at that time for, I can't remember, it was quite some time ago. And then Arianarchist kind of dropped off for a little bit and she bounced around from team to team. And honestly, I've never understood why she was never snapped up kind of immediately. I've been following her journey on Twitter and seeing how she's gone from team to team and seeing how she's puts in a lot of work as well. She kind of spoke about one team in particular where she'd never played Sova before, but this team needed a Sova. So she dived into it. She spent an entire day learning the nerd arrows, learning, like going full average Jonas, trying to learn how to play Sova for this team. And then they were like, nah, it's fine. We're going to go with someone else. And it's like, you pass up on someone with that kind of work ethic. It astounds me. So when I saw her tweet that she was subbing in for TSM, I was like, yes, big opportunity. Let's go. And then she tweeted, I'm a trial. And I was like, yes, it's happening. So I really hope that they do make this official and they pick her up because she really deserves it.
And I was also, I think it was something on Twitter, maybe it was a post or a video that had seen, but it was TSM kind of looking into picking up Arianarchist, and I think a couple of their other players kind of came as a duo package. Hey, if I go, I want to play with her, and I don't remember the names off the top. I apologize. But so then, a spot opens up, and it's kind of like a blessing and a curse, obviously, and it just seemed like almost perfect timing, because I think Sam was saying before the broadcast when we were talking that Arianarchist was kind of okay with playing in with a co-ed team, shooting for the VCT, and that was probably because TSM wasn't looking that way. And then, hey, one day spot opens up, and just arguably one of the better pickups for sure.
I mean, not many players are playing Viper full stop in North America right now, so I think this is a massive asset. But moving on to Frogs just a little bit before we talk about Split. Sam, they ran the triple dual list even. Do you feel like that perhaps on the defense side let them down a little bit?
I think that composition actually works out better for them on Icebox. We know that agents like Sova, for example, don't get as much value on the Icebox. So your Sentinels, your information gathering agents don't really pan out too much. And I think that actually contributes to why this map was so close, because it fed. I kind of spoke earlier about how all three maps kind of play into Frogs' playstyle, but Icebox in particular, because they never really play any kind of a recon agent, really worked in for them. So it may have let them down slightly. I mean, they still still showed some of that aggression that we saw before. And FaZe showed us in VCT Sentinels as well. They showed us that an aggressive defense can work exceptionally well. So I don't think that necessarily their composition is what held them back there. I think it was more about the players themselves. You know, TSM versus Frogs. TSM just had a better grasp on what was happening in that second half. And statistically, TSM are better on attack on Icebox than they are on defense. And again, I'm pulling from a very small portion of statistics because there aren't that many. But, you know, the stats are what they are. They have a better attacking side. So I think that plays a lot into it as well. We're really going to see how these teams stack up now as we move over on to the next map, which is the map that Frogs have never played before, right?
Have never played, and so to kind of just touch on the composition as a whole, you guys at me on Twitter if you feel differently, but I think there's so much that you get from your initiators, and they rarely, if ever, run an initiator in that Sova, that Breach, that Sky, and sometimes it feels like that lack of forward information just isn't there for them in the recon bolt or the guiding light flashes where you get that audio cue. So I would like to see a bit, obviously not on split here. It already looks like they're actually mixing it up and make me eat my words. That's Caster Curse again, guys.
Yeah, well, I'm going to let you guys keep cursing because Frogs must win this map if they want to stay in the competition. Have fun with this one, you two.
Thank you, Yinsu.
Yeah, we were just talking about how they don't play the... I think we both kind of cursed this one as Lynn is suddenly playing Cypher. All right.
Yeah, that's... come on. It's actually... this is really different. This is, they're taking the playbook and just chucking it as far as they can. One duelist coming into this, 2 Sentinels, and then your initiator in that Sky coming in. So Frogs, I mean, hey, backs against the wall. You have to win split here, and they're trying to find any way to do it.
And again, Split has always been a really good Viper map. Now, very few teams play Viper on Split, but it's still a good map to play the Viper on. And we're not seeing the Viper this time around. Arianica's back on that kind of signature Omen. It has become her look since joining TSM. And let's see how it works out here versus the Frogs, who are playing, yes, the wildest composition that we have seen them play, at the very least.
And it's starting off on the defense, so the Sentinels should get a fair bit of utility as the slow orbs go through. It's going to slow Luna down just for a bit. Lynn trying to play aggressive out towards mid. It's Arianarchist once more on the flank, looking to do damage. They do just that, and because of that kill on Lynn, they're able to just get free motion over towards B.
This rotation is nutty. They fake towards A, make some noise, move towards B, but Frogs have already sussed it out. They know what's happening. What they don't realize, however, is that there is a Killjoy on a mad flank coming through their spawn, waiting to pincer them in. And if they don't notice Athena back here, it's going to be dangerous. Oh my goodness.
Flank versus flank here. They're all knifing down the barrier, and here it comes. Just how much value can Athena get? Is going to take down 2. Looking for more. Still very healthy here as Dinos finally able to battle back, but running out of time. The last one standing in a 1v4. TSM, they've got the nutty strats, and it works here for the pistol.
The patience from Athena there. She had so many opportunities to just wildly start shooting, maybe get one pick off, but she waits it out, gets 2, gets the 3rd one low, and that's an easy cleanup for TSM. That was played so well. I love that rotation. The fake on A, the quick rush towards B after Ari gets a kill in mid, and then the remainder flank. So Ari, who normally flanks for them, has gone down. So you send Athena out on the flank instead. You still create that pincer, and you completely shut down Frogs. Frogs are really going to need to step up their game here. This is the map they've never played, and it's starting to show.
The flashes making things a little unbearable over towards A main, but TSM proving that it doesn't matter all that much now. 2 members will be without their bonus going into this next round, but a very favorable trade when you win the round.
I think TSM are making this unbearable. We're going to see the buy coming through here from Frogs, as expected. You know, you lose the 2 pistol rounds, you're able to buy up, get those rifles on the board. So now they have the gun advantage, and this is a very, very important round so that they can try and swing momentum back in their favor. They've got good control of the map here. They're split up fairly evenly. They've somewhat given up mid, though, which is a little dangerous, and we saw how dangerous that is in the very first round. But, you know, TSM don't seem to be making any... No, as I say that, cast the curse, they are moving towards mid, and it looks like they're going for the pincer again.
You can tell Frogs are expecting another play out towards A based off of where they put those trap wires. Now, the push for free all the way through B Heaven is able to find a kill for Emily, and not a free B site just yet, but as I say that, Anarchist gets on the board, Zoe gets on the board, Ellie's able to battle back for one, but it seems like Ellie against the world in some of these rounds in the past 2 maps as that spike goes down. The last 2, they're rotating, but this is just not a good spot. This is their first rifle, and it's going so poorly.
I mean, we talk about mid control, and it's so important, not just because when you have control of mid, you're able to rotate to any point of the map, but when you have control of mid, you can deny rotations, and that's the situation that Frogs find them in right now. They're not able to actually get onto site, and when they do, that happens.
Yeah, just Zoe cutting them down as they enter the site. And you said it perfectly, right? Mid control is huge. This is one of those maps where that is so incredibly apparent. It's so apparent, in fact, that changes to the map were made before the most recent changes towards mid, specifically because it was so very important to try and get control there. And we see it conceded. But it's also another big reason why we see the Sage here, right? Because you can just put that wall up and sure, it might get shot down, but it's a very narrow path with it that push through and you get all of that information that they're there. Unfortunately, the Killjoy alarm bot up in B Heaven, that's not enough to stop that push like we just saw.
Well, Frogs on an eco round here, and we can see they're all rushing straight out of Garage, trying to get this round over with. Actually manages to get a pick off though. That's pretty big, all things considered.
And we're seeing the power of the Bucky in that one, as it's a wide swing, right click with the Bucky, does find a kill. And now the Stinger's not as it once was, but we saw Clefairy pick up a couple on Icebox with it, so we'll see how that proficiency lands. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot to be had over towards this B site. Emily probably going to take away this Vandal as soon as Junifor picks it. Okay, no, backing away, so playing it safe, looking to just hang on to that one because Emily was ready for the trade.
Oh, here it comes. Oh, they're elephanting! No! Elephanting through mid, so Emily is able to actually hear that, gets the first pick, calls out the position, so everyone knows where Junifor is. Not that it matters, it's the 1v3 situation here. The spike is already down, and she's elephanting her way through vents.
Oh, and they can spot her toes as she looks to push on through, then the double drop. It's Zoe to close it out again. Now, that's the 2 eco or the 2 anti-ecos go the way of TSM. The big one there being that rifle going the way of TSM and Frogs losing it. Now they're back on rifles, and this is where you got to start to put your foot on the gas.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is actually very often where we see a team that's on the back foot get a little bit of a second wind, a little bit of a resurgence. You know, four rounds in, they've lost them all. Now they can buy up. They're even out in terms of the guns. So now they need to be winning those aim duels, but not just that. They need to start thinking a little bit more strategically here. They've got good control of the map, but once again, they've given up mid, which means they actually have 0 map control, in my opinion.
It doesn't amount to a whole lot. They have since switched up the Cypher and the Killjoy position, so it is going to be the Cypher trap wires over on this side as paint shells go through. Emily doesn't need it. It's the Phantom that gets the job done onto Ellie, and up through vents, up through B Heaven, really wherever you want to go, it seems, for free, as they're not expecting this. No, Zoe is some way, somehow finds that trade kill, and sure, one happened across the map, but TSM still in the driver's seat. And if you die towards A, just keep going B, and they do just that.
And again, I can't stress this enough. Mid control, it's so important because again, TSM take control of that mid and they deny rotations from Frogs. And anytime somebody tries to move towards this B site, they get cut down in their prime. And now it's down to the last 2 players for Frogs. We spoke about how this was really the momentum shifting round, the potential that Frogs really needed to make something happen. And they just haven't. TSM still have 4 ultimates online. They're not going to need to use any of them because it's a 4v2. They've got solid post plants, solid angles covered here. There's elephants up in rafters.
Ooh, but the kills almost go in the way of Frogs. They do eventually get shut down as they try and push on through. And I mean, you said it, I think, a couple of rounds ago. They get onto the sites, but that's what happens. TSM just chops them down bit by bit. So now that I'm looking at the comp, it seems like we talked about the respect for the Viper alone, but so much respect, maybe too much respect, is being given over towards TSM, because in that last buy round, Frogs were very close to ultimates. Now, obviously, they have them coming off the deaths or the kills that they got, but they're not playing for those orbs. They're not pushing forward at all. They're just giving it all up, and TSM are finding the fights and winning them off of that, as that Rolling Thunder looks to clear out heaven. Emily going to go up top with the showstopper. Unfortunately, doesn't find anything but pushes everybody away momentarily as Arianarchist starts to creep up on the site and might just get some extra info that the team needs as DNOS tries to hold it down. Last one in the West with the shotty in hand, trying to go buck wild there on that ace side. TSM, up one player, Resurrection available, now up two. Ooh, cut down. Just a 3v2. Those Buckies starting to get some value. And Kath was thinking about it, that Resurrection, but might just hold on for another round.
This is what I was talking to you about before the broadcast. We never actually had a chance to talk about it on the desk, but Kath flexing from that jet to the Sage this time, and giving somebody else an opportunity to be the entry for the team. And she's performing really, really well here. And now for Frogs, this is again another super unfortunate situation here where they just cannot get control of this map. And I think you were talking about the composition, and you're absolutely right. I think that the composition goes against the play style that they've cultivated, which is they play the triple duelist, so they play aggressive, they burst onto site, they get a few picks. That's kind of how they plan to win out rounds. Now they're playing a massively defensive composition here. Like when the tides turn, I mean, this is already a defender favored map. They have a defender heavy composition and they're still losing rounds. When this swaps over to the offensive side, I don't see how they're going to be able to leverage themselves some points here. The composition that they've decided to run is a very difficult one, particularly against the composition that TSM have.
6 rounds up is where TSM find themselves. So sitting pretty even at the half. Like you said, on this attacking side, that's a pretty solid number to put up, as Emily maybe sniffing something out here, as it's both Sentinels pushing on up. The shoulder peak is just a bit too much for Clefairy, but Lynn trades it back. This one on to Zoe. That's a lot of utility now taken off the board, and the Neural Theft. There's the information on top. Inside the cage, Lynn will play, and that actually, somehow, someway, it sparks a rotation for that spike to come over towards B. So it's still looking to be B hit for TSM as Emily plays inside the smoke. Maybe not long for this world as the guiding, or the seekers rather, come on through. Emily's able to take him down. The paint shell's not going to buy enough time or find enough damage to take somebody down just yet. There's that first kill coming on through. Emily stalwart on the defense on this attacking side. B Heaven belongs to Emily. Arianarchist is able to get on the board for one, and DNOS has to go huge, but TSM in full control here.
TSM was so good at restabilizing, because I'll be honest, at the start of that round, it was looking so good for Frogs, and I thought that TSM were really on a back foot there. But it wasn't that they were being driven back. They pulled back, gave themselves a moment to breathe, gave themselves a moment waiting for Frogs to push in, and then they pushed back. And Emily really pushed back. That was a super impressive display up on the rafters there, using those satchels, being able to take down 2 or 3 up in heaven just on her own. Really, really solid play here. And I want to see more of that from Frogs, in fact. I want to see that ability to, okay, you've lost one. How do you turn that around? How do you convert that into a round win? Because again, they have all the tools available to them. So I want to see them actually start to do that.
Eco this time around, but getting the better half of that trade is Ellie with the Sheriff in hand. Unfortunately traded right back, so TSM playing together right on each other's heels. Double satchel charge. You can tell Emily's feeling it in this one. Picked up 4 kills in the last. The rest of the team starting to get it done in round number 8. Now a Spectre in hand. Enos peeks away. No, able to find it. That spike down on the ground as Clefairy Ferrari swings with the stinger and finds one. Now Emily having a pretty good game for herself. 1 kill away from that showstopper as well. Bot in hand. As a utility, this is a very tall ask now that she's been stunned up and spotted out by the Trailblazer.
Ask and you shall receive. I was hoping that Frogs would find a way to start to stabilize a little bit better, and now they found themselves in a... Oh, they're not looking. Okay, no, she is. Whew. That was super unfortunate for Emily. You know, she had kind of a superhero moment in the previous round up in heaven, but this time around, she wasn't able to get that. It was fantastic play here from Frogs. Now, that's the Frogs I want to see. A solid defense where they deny rotations and they deny the aggression. That was the big one. TSM were pushing in hard and fast, and Frogs did really well to slow it down. They started off with the Sage Orb to stop the push from going all the way onto site, and then they just continued following that up. That's what I want to keep seeing from them, and maybe a little bit more of that mid control, because 7 of the 8 rounds that they lost have been because they gave up mid.
And this time they kind of do the same, but the fight taken right to him at A as Emily. She's not done just yet. Sure, she flubbed in the last round, couldn't grab the 1v3. Gonna pick up 2 nice and early, completely open up the A site for a 5v3 retake.
Okay, so this is the opposite of what I was saying. And again, that aggression from TSM is so massive. Oh my goodness. Hitting those shots from... I mean, she may as well have been on Haven at that point. Okay, it was on a turret, so, but still, like, I could barely see the turrets. That's pretty impressive to me. And I don't know what more you can do here. You got 3 people. Oh my goodness. And Emily just up in heaven mowing people down.
Yeah, it really doesn't feel like there's anything you can do, as the lockdown was available for Clefairy, chooses not to use it in this round. So another one to fall by the wayside. And with 2 HP, even these exit frags aren't necessarily looking the best. Goes good for 1, so not too bad there, as it's all down to Ari Anarchist to stay alive and bring that weapon into the next round. And mid control is kind of where we were leaning on that one. They opt out of it. And even when we say, hey, play mid, and TSM don't play mid, Frogs don't play mid, and they just die, right? If you see Emily, you have to run no matter what. The raise is so explosive. If you see it, you just have to go try and link up with the rest of the team and play retake, because it really feels like she's doing whatever she wants.
The thing about that mid control as well is, like, even if the enemy team doesn't play for mid, if you're already in mid, then you are able to rotate more quickly. Frogs were not able to rotate quickly enough on the back of that. And I mean, let's face it, Emily just kind of blasted her way onto site without really thinking about anything. So without having that time, that ability to get onto site, the ability to rotate, of course they were going to lose out on that round. And now, starting this round out, already 1 player down, as again, we're just seeing, like, crazy aggression.
Insane aggression. Yeah. The showstopper was popped, and Ari Anarchist just ran at it, even being tagged by the cyber cam, the spy cam. So at TSM, Valorant is such a momentum-based game, and you can see just how much they gained from that last round. Now, granted, I believe this was an eco, or the economy was pretty shattered across the board for the Frogs. But just to run at the showstopper rather than trying to sneak away, to find the kill, to get healed up, and then a flawless round to top it all off. I mean, TSM, again, just on all cylinders right now. And what it feels like is Frogs are lacking the confidence that they had on Icebox. They're not looking to take the fights. They're playing back and allowing TSM to take the fights, and everything's going their way.
And the problem now is that the momentum shift that needs to happen is urgent. It needs to happen right now, because if they don't win the next 2 rounds, they're going into the next half with 1 point, which means TSM only need to win like 2 or 3 rounds in order to win out the entire series. So that momentum shift needs to happen right now. Whatever switch needs to be flicked in the minds of the Frogs players, it has to happen now. They've still got the lockdown, and they've got the From the Shadows available. Not sure how they're going to be able to utilize the From the Shadows, but the lockdown can be super, super helpful at trying to deny a plant or trying to deny TSM from stopping them from defusing. So hopefully they can start to use that utility a little bit better. Again, they've got the most defensive team that I could possibly think of, and they're struggling under the weight of this pressure.
You should run.
There has been so much space gained. So all the way up through mid, which we kind of know that's happening. Frogs have just been giving that up. But Ari Anarchist on the opposite side of the map just pushed up to B for free by just smoking off that turret. Now the kills are starting to come on through. And Lynn may be thinking, hey, I've got the lurker here. There's somewhere else on the site. Is quickly forced off A, back towards screen. Now playing for the retake. Anarchist on the flank, not able to find anything. So this is one of very few times we've seen TSM on the back foot, but they have so much available to them in Emily alone and the Rolling Thunder to try and stomp a push onto the site.
Frogs are so grouped up at the moment, up in heaven, knowing the Rolling Thunder's gonna come through and that's gonna shut them down. Oh man, I like saw that in slow motion in my head. They were so grouped up. The Rolling Thunder rolls out and you're just like, oh no, it's all over.
The red carpet laid there and it hit, like you said, all grouped up. All 4 members were hit and 2 kills taken almost immediately between Emily and Zoe. And then the rest of the team obviously followed. That was the round. That was where I thought Frogs was going to get some of that momentum, and unfortunately, they just fall short. Now, coming into this one, you talked about the lockdown in the last. It was used. It didn't get too much. In this round, it's even worse, right? You have that other Sentinel ult in the Neural Theft, but they've been playing so far back. I don't know how Lynn finds a body for that ultimate.
Yeah, and again, you know, the shrouded step from the shadows isn't really going to be too useful. I mean, maybe for a quick rotation, but at this point, TSM are playing so fast and hard that there isn't really time for Frogs to make any sort of a rotation. And now again, Emily's got the showstopper online. I think we've got, okay, no, it wasn't a pause. I thought the game had paused for a second there. But it is going to be an anti-eco. So again, this is, wait, no, they're forcing? Are they forcing this?
But yeah, I mean, last round of the half, you have to...
Yeah, I suppose.
Everything you got here.
It's a little unfortunate that they bought in the previous round, so now they have literally nothing coming into this round.
It is sticks and stones here, whereas for TSM, it's all Gucci everything. They're able to buy really whatever they wanted, all the util online, and we're getting to see that showstopper popped. Emily, usually good for a couple with this ultimate online. Up close and personal. Clefairy takes her out, but the rest of the squad behind it trades it. Now, Clefairy did manage to get away here, but the numbers in favor of TSM. A resurrection available coming into this last round as well. So the Frogs, once more, backs against the wall here. Now working against the clock. And you've only got one place to go unless you choose to spray down that wall towards defender spawn. You know? Fall down towards heaven. Nice paint shells. Again, the utility. I cannot stop saying Emily's name. She's been so huge for this TSM squad in this game. And still alive. Now that Neural Theft comes online, they get the body on Athena. All 4 playing on site. And in the last round of the half, it's all up to Clefairy with 9 HP. Anarchist going to sit her down. 11-1 we go at the half. But Sam, I'm not comparing the 4 teams. In the VCT, Challengers 3, I believe. It was version 1 and Rise. Rise was up 11-1 at the half, and version 1 won 12 in a row. Now, I know that's a tall task, but that is documentation. That's information that we have that it is possible at the highest level. So we could quite possibly see that. Now, once is a fluke, twice is data. So I'm looking for some data here from the Frogs.
Well, it is a Herculean task, to say the least, especially because we kind of touched on this a little bit, the specific composition that Frogs are running right now. It's a very, very defensive-heavy composition. I'd like to see how they're able to leverage that, maybe use the Killjoy turrets a little bit more to try to slow down rotations, you know? Try to cut off avenues and maybe try and use the cipher cams and the tripwires to give you like an early heads up of those rotations, because you know there's going to be flanks. Like, Kath has been amazing. When she was on the Jet, she was so good on that flank. And the Sage flank is actually pretty good as well. And we can't discredit Arianakist either on that Omen. So there's going to be a lot of flanking action as well. So I think in that regard, the Killjoy and the Cypher can really start to get a little bit more value than what we'd seen on the defensive side. They can start to shut down those flanks a little bit earlier on. But if TSM go hard, fast, and aggressive like they have been, if they choose to play a hyper-aggressive defense instead of waiting for the Frogs to push in on them, then they're going to have a massive advantage anyway, because like there's not going to be enough time to shut anything down. They're just going to run at you. And given that TSM only need to win 2 rounds, this is not like their brother team. This team can win pistols. So, so if they win these 2 pistol rounds, it's game over.
I'm glad you said that because I was looking for a way to swing it in there, and I've seen the beef on Twitter as well between the two teams in the organization, kind of just talking about how they can they're winning pistol rounds. But yeah, like you said, I mean, and with 2 rounds, this is the most important. And TSM, they look like they're having fun. That's what they look like they're doing on the attacking side. Now on defense, I'm expecting the same exact thing, and you have 12 rounds to work with. Ideally, you wouldn't give up 12 rounds. But, I mean, Split is their oyster right now.
Oh, that's a lot of utility very, very early on just to push themselves onto site. And I like this. So now we're seeing that aggressive play that Fwogs is so akin to with even this defensive composition. Okay, we're playing past the parcel with the spike. Somebody's got to put that bad boy down.
And it is going to be Lynn to finally get that one down. Looking to get that ultimate online nice and early. As Ellie and this, I mean, we talked about how much aggression and how much space you need to take. Well, they've taken so much all the way back towards the spawn as Ellie goes huge, but Emily again, a double kill with the utility. Ferry, the last one standing, and unfortunately, the Fwogs have since fainted. They're sent back to the Poke Center to heal on up for another round, but backs against the wall in the, like, possibly the worst way. Their last buy in the first half was bad. This one, it doesn't get much better.
And remember, guys, abilities in Valorant don't kill. All right, so now we're on that match point, and oh man, this is dire straits for the Fwogs. It looks like they're going to go for a hard B rush. Oh no, they're actually angling towards mid, so they do know mid exists. This is good. Let's see if they can take control of that mid, start getting those rotations in. However, unfortunately for them, TSM also seem to know that mid exists, and they have a pretty strong defense already set up here.
Right there.
Trailblazer for the information. Only spots out one. It was Emily who shot that one out, but now they know that they're all queued up out towards mid as a couple of kills go back and forth, but the spike has fallen, and since has been picked up. All 4 members from the Fwogs, they're going down together if they're going to go down at all as they try and hop away. Kath cuts down one. Zoe with the Bucky looks to find another. There's 3 remaining, but low HP. No heals on the board as that Sky has since fallen. Now 6 feet under, and they're corralled. The spike has options, but for some reason, they think they just need to have to keep hammering it home at mid.
I mean, somebody's got to... Oh, no. The spike goes down. His DNOS goes down, and the whole of Fwogs are on the other side. They need to cross the no man's land in order to pick up that spike to swing out, but it's not going to be good. And there it is. TSM will win out. I'm sorry. I stole your moment of the last kill, but it had to happen.
No, I'm glad you got that one in. Everybody needs one. And yes, I said I'm gonna try and get you your licks in. I might just throw you right into the wolves as a whole. As TSM 2-0, this is what we saw from them in the open qualifying. They went down early in open quals and they just battled their way back in this lower bracket. And I expect to see this all the way through. And I'm sure they are incredibly hungry for a rematch against that C9 White team or that Dignitas team, right? Those 2 teams that in this Game Changers alone have sent them to that lower bracket. So.
And what I loved about that previous round was the breach play. And I was really sad that we only really got to see 1 round of it, because I loved the way that TSM were playing that. Using the breach flashes, everyone swings out. They did it twice, and on both occasions, they were able to get a kill off the back of it. And that's why breach is so powerful on Split. So it is a little unfortunate that we only got to see like 2 rounds of it. I would have liked to have seen a bit more of that, but the weekend is still young. This has only been day 1, and I'm pretty sure we're going to have a lot more TSM over the coming days. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely looking forward to it. Like you said, day 1, we've got a whole weekend for it, and a face that you need to get familiar seeing, Yinsu. We're going to welcome her back on in to break this one down, watching from the sidelines.
Oh,
welcome
look at that
back,
face.
Yinsu.
Yeah, I had to get in on there. You know, I never get to talk about those last kills, so just want to throw in that not like this. That wasn't the way I kind of wanted it for it to end, but we have to address the Cypher and Killjoy combo. We might have an interview coming up later because I really would like to know what the decision is behind that. Tanner, were you a fan of this? Because I have, very, very rarely seen a team play Cypher and Killjoy at the same time, let alone on Split.
Yeah, not a huge fan. I do enjoy now. I guess outside looking in and just overall for the Frogs, I like that they mixed it up here. I do think, contrary to that, you know, until you feel more comfortable, that's the first time that we have split any information for them. It's the first time we've seen it. And play to your strengths a little bit. I wouldn't be upset if you lose that game and you're going with your hard fragging, you know, 3 duelist ways without an initiate or something of the sort. You know, I think at the end of the day, composition aside, it just came down to confidence for the Frogs. I think they lost a lot of confidence going to that one. And I mean, how could you not on a map that you really don't have a whole lot of data on?
Honestly, I'm not a big fan of the duo of the Cypher and the Killjoy, but I can see the thought process that went behind it. You know, Icebox was fairly close, but like you said, you kind of start to lose a little bit of confidence there. You realize you're up against a very strong team. You've just come off the back of losing to C9 White as well, so you're already in a little bit of a slump, and you're like, all right, how do we deal with this aggression? Let's just throw every defensive hero that we can plus a Raze, because you got to have some kind of firepower. And I mean, the Raze did some work there, but it takes more than just being defensive, right? That's why balanced team compositions are a thing. You need to have a little bit of everything. You need a little bit of that firepower, a little bit of that information gathering, a little bit of that support from the rest of your team, you know, utility in terms of smokes and flashes and so on. You don't want to be too heavy-handed on either one of those. And whether it's triple duelist or whether it's just every defensive hero in the game, I want to see Frogs come with a middle ground. And I think if they can find a composition that works for them and start to hone that new approach, then they'll start to soar.
I do feel like if you're going to go, you know, onto a composition like Killjoy and Cypher, I was expecting some kind of setup that they had a very specific game plan and they wanted to execute. You know, they started on defense. So in theory, if you're going to go for that kind of comp, you are probably going to go straight in with a advantage of some sort. But I just didn't see that. I didn't really understand it personally. Again, maybe this is like coming from like an EU perspective, because that's not something that we ever see, especially with the Killjoy. I thought, you know, some of the setups on defense wasn't very disciplined, just putting it, you know, nicely. I agree with Tanner. I would like to see them kind of like play with that confidence, stick to what they are good at, because they can do it. Icebox was very, very close. I think they nearly cracked the code, but I definitely like to see this team back, because Sam, you know, we have to say goodbye to them today. It was an elimination match. Someone had to go, but I really hope they don't feel disheartened by this. They haven't been together for that long, and I really, really hope that they kind of stay together and see what they can do at VCT. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember watching, they did an interview with Run It Back, and so the ladies were talking about how they've played in a couple of the VALORANT leagues, and they always change their names to like funny, silly things. I can't remember them offhand. If you guys haven't gone and seen that interview, I would recommend checking it out. It's really fun. The ladies are a lot of fun to listen to. But they've been in the scene for a little while. They kind of change up their name every now and then. They're fun, they're lighthearted, but they're also good at the game, or they wouldn't have made it this far. So I think if you take that fun and lighthearted, you just kind of rein it in a little bit and focus it up. You know, get yourself a focusing crystal or whatever it is you need. Pinpoint whatever that strategy is that you're trying to do. Because again, like you were saying, Insu, you know, the triple duelist worked for them to a certain extent. And if you want to stick with that, if that's what you want to hone, if you don't want to go for the middle ground, then by all means do it. But make sure that you have a plan. You know, you got to have that confidence in yourself. When you've made that plan, when you've made that decision as a team, stick to your guns. Don't start doing weird things because you're not sure that it's going to work. Keep practicing, keep at it, because I want to see these ladies in the future. This is not going to be the last Game Changers. I guarantee you that, and I want to see them in the next one.
Yeah, Tanner, before I let you interject, Sam, what the hell is a focusing crystal? What is this?
It's a Dungeons and Dragons thing. I'm a big nerd. Certain classes need crystals in order to cast their spells. Please don't make me explain this on broadcast.
But Tana, again, I'm gonna talk to you a little bit later about Frogs because we do have an interview right now with TSM's Athena. Hi, Athena. Welcome to the show. Congratulations on your victory just now against Frogs. Before we dive into that game, I just really quickly wanted to get your thoughts on the Dignitas series because it did seem really, really close. So what happened there?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously we are playing with a sub, so we only had a very limited amount of time to practice. I feel like when we were playing against Dig, we were getting the ball rolling and we actually got a lot more rounds than we actually were planning on. I think we definitely really wanted to beat them for sure. So I'm actually really glad it got really, really close. But the thing is, obviously at the end of the day, they had a lot better teamwork than we were having at the time. And it's really rough because we kind of just had to incorporate Ari within like, I think we had maybe 8 days to incorporate her, so it was really rough. I think for sure though it's definitely a matchup that we're looking forward to rematch them on for sure. If they do end up going to the lower bracket, it's definitely something we're looking forward to. Just a lot of small little mistakes from us I think actually cost us that game, or those last 2 games at least, because they were really, really close.
Well, you know, you guys, like you said, have had to play with Ari, kind of a last-minute sub. Was the Viper planned then? So did you specifically work on this Viper over the last 8 days? Because none of us saw that coming.
You know what's funny is that Viper is all Ari. She was like, guys, listen, I have a plan. I'm gonna play Viper and it's gonna work. And we were just like, you know what, you do you, we'll work around it. And sure enough, you know, like a lot of the strats that we came up with, especially on Icebox, with that Viper, it actually worked out really, really well. And, you know, I'm glad that she brought that out to us. Definitely an Ari pick though. Definitely Ari doing Ari things on Viper.
Yeah, no, I'm all for that. I feel like we do need more Vipers in North America especially. And I guess in extension of that, how has preparation been in general? Because like you said, you've only had 8 days to sort of get everything down. Has that affected you guys in terms of your map pool at all?
I think our map pool has been okay. I think we definitely wanted to work a lot more in Icebox. I feel like we did drop a lot of rounds today, and it kind of shows that that was our weaker map. But I mean, going forward, we've learned from our mistakes already from Icebox. We've already talked about them, which I think is something really great about this team, is we can talk about everything as it happens and try to adapt as it's happening. So yeah, I think it did mess with us a little bit. We wanted to go over a certain amount of maps before obviously Game Changers, but we could barely go over Icebox, so it did affect us. But at the end of the day, I still think we outperformed ourselves. I still think we did a really, really good job. And I think we have a solid foundation on Icebox moving forward.
I mean, you guys definitely did a good job if you feel like that is one of your weaker maps.
Yeah.
We kind of were theorizing about this, and I wanted to get your opinion on it as well, because between the 3 of us, we weren't like 100% sure when it came to the composition of your opponent tonight, Frogs. Obviously, they ran the Cypher and Killjoy on split. Is this something that you guys expected or have played against before? And what do you make of that decision?
It's definitely a wild card. We definitely did not expect it. When we saw it, we were like, oh, okay, these guys are going to be playing really heavy, you know, defense setups. Sounds good. And I mean, they did. They had really good setups, so they were interchanging their sentinels all the time. So I think it kind of worked out for them. It's just, I think we just worked on split a lot more, and we had those strats down that kind of countered their plays. And I think it was just unfortunate that the composition was just countered by pretty much most of our strats. But I think it's kind of a viable setup. I think 2 sentinels is pretty much only viable on split, and I think it can work for sure.
Well, we've got one more question for you. I'm going to open this up to Tanner and Sam and see if you guys have anything you want to ask Athena. Don't all go at once, guys.
Yeah, I mean, Lucy, you did such a good job. I guess my biggest thing is now looking forward. Obviously, you have quite possibly a rematch at Dignitas, a rematch at Cloud9 from the Opens, who sent you down to the lowers. You've got this lowers run in front of you. I guess what's the mentality behind that? Obviously, you guys are, you know, not down in the dumps because you just won this one. But now looking forward at those 2 strong teams that have put you down, I guess what's the prep and the mentality for going into those rematches?
Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, like the team is really good at adapting mid-game and kind of like realizing our mistakes as we make them. So I think mentally we're definitely prepared, because looking back on the Dignitas game already, like we've already had our talk about it, and it was mainly what we feel like a lot of our smaller mistakes that cost us the game. So I feel like going back into it, we obviously are going to be working on those mistakes. We actually used this previous VO3 to work on them, and we're all already feeling like a lot more confident, in my opinion. About C9, they've been a team for a lot longer. Obviously, they've been a team for around a year now. I think we just have a couple of tricks up our sleeve that we can bring, and hopefully, hopefully we can get those rounds. I mean, we did play against them, and we got 8 rounds on them on, I'm not sure, I can't remember. I think split, it was split. We did manage to get 8 rounds, so we're really confident that we can just keep grinding and keep trying to outplay ourselves, basically, and try not to make the small little mistakes that we're making.
Ooh, I'm very, very excited. Thank you for that question, Tana. And of course, thank you for your time, Athena. Always great to speak to you, and best of luck with your lower bracket semi-finals game even tomorrow.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Perfect. Well, that was the post-match interview presented to you guys by Verizon, and I'm glad we got to speak to her and broke down some of the things that we're talking about. Now, Sam, of course, they have to sort of go through this lower bracket. They're going to have to go through elimination every single time they play from now on. No more second chances. Do you feel like, given the way they performed today, you see them perhaps making it all the way to that lowest finals?
I think that winning games is a combination, obviously, of a lot of different factors. One of those factors is your skill, how well you play, and they've got that. I think they definitely do. The other factor is, of course, your mental game. And just hearing from Athena, hearing how, the team, they've already, broken down their Dignitas game. They're already on top of that. They're already thinking ahead to what's coming up. Who do we play next? How are we going to deal with that? How are we going to tackle that? They've got the mental. I think they have every tool that they need. And we saw them do it before. Tana was mentioning it a little bit earlier on, where they got knocked down into the lower bracket in the qualifier. They still managed to fight their way through to get in to the main event here. So I do actually see them making their way through the lower bracket fairly easily. What happens when we get to the semifinals, however, or the quarters and the semis, that remains to be seen. But I definitely see them making it through, most of tomorrow at the very least.
I agree with that sentiment that this team seems to get that lower bracket buff and should have, I guess, not an easy time, but I'm expecting them, just based off of that interview, being able to make adjustments on the fly, I think, is absolutely huge, especially when you're playing against these teams that are really strong teams. And so losing is learning, or lose is improve, as I like to say. There's winning and there's learning. And it seems like TSM are sponges when it comes to that. And then coming into these matches, just the what they've done before versus what they're going to do, and then having a mix of both of that when you're making those mid-round calls, I think is going to be kind of their X factor, or that extra tool in the bag that they'll need.
Also, can we just talk about the fact that Ari just rocks up and goes, yeah, let's play Viper. I got the lineups. I got the strats. I know what we're doing. Like, what? That's an IGL's job, That's a coach's job. That is something that you craft as a team, that you spend hours on. So the fact that she's done her server time and turned up with that is excellent. And I feel like she is going to be that secret weapon. Then maybe that would take TSM a lot further than we're expecting. But for now, we have seen a lot of great games today, and we do have a flick of the day presented by AimLab to present to you guys. I believe this is going to be a highlight, kind of a play of the day, flick of the day. I don't know what this is, so I'm kind of excited to watch this. Tanner and Sam want to cast over this? Feel free.
Yeah,
I remember this.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of Ellie doing Ellie things on Icebox, which is one of the players that I had said, high average combat score, does the duelist thing incredibly well, and you see it on low HP, finds that shot out of the sky some way, somehow. That was a lot of what I thought we'd see on Icebox, or Split, is the confidence in Ellie. So I'm hoping to see a whole lot more of that player and that team as a whole, because, you see it. They put up a really solid fight against a really strong team in Game Changers.
I think that there's been like a pattern of, so we spoke about Yinsu, you were saying Ari doing Ari, Athena saying Ari doing Ari things, but there's a couple of players that I've seen that, Ellie doing Ellie things, Emily doing Emily things. Like, there's so much firepower with all of these ladies, and I've so enjoyed watching it. I mean, Ellie had some really, really standout moments. Again, you know, we had that flick of the day? That really showcased one of her better moments, but she had so many of them, some amazing showstoppers, some amazing clutch moments. I think she had a 4K in a couple of rounds as well, so she's been a stellar performer for her team. But again, there've been so many of those throughout these series, not just the series we just casted, but throughout the entire day. I'm loving seeing how powerful these ladies are in and outside of the server.
And my pedantic personality is loving the fact that the flick of the day was actually a flick. And it wasn't some kind of like utility kill or anything like that. So I'm very happy about that. But I think that is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much, Tanner and Sam, for joining me and casting and giving us a great best of 3. Of course, a thank you to AimLab and Verizon as well for the flick of the day and also the post-match interviews. Congratulations to all of our teams that made it through to tomorrow. And thank you to Jess and Vansili for joining me earlier. And most of all, thank you to you guys for watching at home. We will be back here tomorrow, I believe, at 3 p.m. Eastern time with the semi-finals. We'll see you then.
One enemy remaining.